Thank you, Polly. The Prime Minister is being called on to set out post-Christmas COVID plans after one of his health ministers warned that there is uncertainty around whether people can make plans to hold celebrations on New Year's Eve. Boris Johnson has so far reassured people that no further restrictions will be introduced before December the 25th because there isn't enough evidence on the severity of Omicron to justify stricter measures. But Conservative Health Minister Gillian Keegan urged caution today and says the government must base its decisions on emerging data. Well, earlier today, Wales First Minister Mark Drakeford announced the country would move to COVID alert level 2 from Boxing Day. Well, joining me now is the Conservative MP for Ashfield, Lee Anderson. Lee, are you the type to welcome more restrictions? I have a feeling you're not.
I'll take a wild guess, Alex. Absolutely not. I welcome the Prime Minister's announcement. No news is good news at the moment, so it took a sensible decision to wait a few days. Look, the data doesn't back up any further restrictions or any future restrictions at this present moment in time, and I don't want to see us being going the same direction, should I say, as Wales or Scotland. These are quite severe measures, actually, from Boxing Day onwards. I don't want us to get into that situation. He's quite right what he's doing. He's looking at the data day by day. And you know what? This new variant, this Omicron variant, it's not as bad as we first thought it was. There's less hospitalisations. There's less people being poorly. Less people fortunately dying. So let's be sensible. Let's have a sensible and nice Christmas and look forward to a good New Year.
If only. I mean, we've been groomed this way before, haven't we? We were told last Christmas that there wouldn't be anything, and then there was, and it would only be a very short lockdown, and essentially it dragged on for 3 months. Does it feel a bit to you like the government have now invented a get-out clause for the NHS being overwhelmed, which, frankly, it is every single year?
I think we do sometimes hero worship the NHS a little bit too much. You know, it's there for a reason. It's there to make us better. It's there to save lives, and it's there for to help us during the winter months. It's normally overwhelmed in the winter months with flu and other illnesses and falls from elderly people. So that's the job it does. You know, we cannot wrap ourselves in cotton wool. We cannot be held hostage to this virus. You know, the NHS will always cope. Whatever we throw at it, they do a fantastic job. But really, Alex, we need to come out of this now. We need to crack on with our lives. We need to live our lives and just get on with it. And like I say, do not be a victim. Do not be a hostage, let's say, to this virus.
If the government do decide that they need to put in place, or they say they need to put in place, some form of restrictions, and they recall Parliament in order to vote on that, do you think it stands a cat in hell's chance of going through? Or at this point, would Tory backbenchers rebel in enough numbers to prevent further restrictions being put in place, do you think?
That's a good question, actually. It's definitely pretty good data for that to get through the House at this moment in time. I know I was one of the people that voted against the government last week. Wasn't happy having to do that, but I felt that, you know, the direction of travel was going the wrong way. I thought, you know, we need to, to live our lives now. We need to come out of these restrictions, if you like, and if there was another vote next week, because I would imagine that if there were restrictions, we'd have to vote on it next week and record next week. If the data is the same data as it is today, then it would be very, very difficult for anybody to vote for future restrictions.
Do you trust the data?
Not always. I think the data can be manipulated to, anybody can manipulate the data. I mean, the data I always look at is my local hospital, the hospitalisations, how many people are dying, how many people are being admitted, and it's not that bad at the moment. I mean, last year it was a lot worse. It was overwhelmed, and it was an easier decision, if you like, to vote for extra measures, have the lockdowns, have the restrictions, and all those measures in place. But this year, it's a completely different kettle of fish. You know, I think the people in this country, we should give them a little bit more credit. They're very sensible on the whole. We've learned to live with it. We know to wear masks. We know to social distance. We're careful where we go. We're careful when we go shopping. We're careful not to visit our elderly and vulnerable too much if we've got a sniffle. So you know what? Give us a bit of credit. Let's crack on living our lives. And if we do that, then we should be okay.
I mean, the latest government advice now is that 5-plus-year-olds who are perhaps vulnerable should be getting their booster jabs. Do you think that the government policy on booster jabs is the right approach, given that actually we're being told that, well, Omicron seems to be able to evade much of the vaccine protection, that having the vaccine doesn't necessarily reduce transmission? We've got all these mixed messages, and yet there's a huge government push now to get everybody getting a booster jab before the end of December. They're haranguing me with regular phone calls and text messages. Do you think that's the right approach, or should we have perhaps bided a bit more time on that front as well?
Well, no, I think, the government was accused of when the pandemic first started 20 months ago, we were accused of acting too slowly. In different things that now we're sometimes accused of being too overcautious, too protective, like a protective parent. I think the booster, I think people should take up the booster, but at the same time we should not be looking at future restrictions if the data doesn't back it up. Well, I've had 3 jabs now. I've had my 2 jabs and my booster. I feel reasonably safe. My parents are the same, and the rest of my family. So I say, get your booster, get your jabs, but come on, let's start and live our lives.
Lee Anderson, MP, fantastic speaking to you, Conservative MP for Ashfield. I just need to make a little self-correction there, because I said government advice, when in fact it's been advisors to the government advising the government that 5 to 11-year-olds who are vulnerable get the vaccine. Little nuance there, but important to make that clear, I think.